The sun beat down relentlessly on the peach orchards of Yuba City, California, a golden haze shimmering over rows of ripening fruit. It was a landscape that promised prosperity, a land where many, including Juan Corona, sought to cultivate their version of the American dream. Born in Mexico, Corona had migrated to California with the ambition and drive that characterized so many of his generation. He quickly established himself, building a reputation as a hard-working, family-oriented man, a pillar of the burgeoning agricultural community. To all appearances, he was an upstanding citizen, a successful labor contractor whose business thrived, supplying the vital workforce that harvested the region's bountiful crops. Within his own home, Juan Corona reigned as a patriarch, his word law. His wife and children saw him as a provider, a man of traditional values who expected respect and obedience. He embodied stability, a reassuring presence in a world often marked by uncertainty. Yet, beneath this carefully constructed facade of respectability, a shadow lingered, a faint echo from a past incident involving violence and mental health struggles in the 1950s, a conviction for assault that had been largely forgotten or deliberately overlooked by those who knew him. It was a subtle crack in the veneer, a fleeting glimpse of a darker side that few dared to acknowledge. As the years progressed, financial pressures mounted on his labor contracting business, adding a layer of stress that threatened to unravel his carefully maintained composure. The Yuba City area, while prosperous for some, was also home to a transient population of migrant farm laborers. These were vulnerable individuals, often isolated, lacking support systems, and entirely dependent on contractors like Corona for their daily bread and meager shelter. They moved with the seasons, following the harvests. Their lives lived on the fringes of society. The peach orchards and riverbanks, beautiful in their natural splendor, also offered secluded nooks and hidden dangers, places where the unwatched could disappear without a trace. Then, the disappearances began. A farm worker, known only by his first name, vanished from the fields. Initially, it was dismissed as common. Such transience was part of life for these laborers. The community's reaction was one of brief concern, quickly overshadowed by the demands of the harvest. Juan Corona, ever the helpful figure, even offered to assist in the search for the missing man, his demeanor calm and cooperative. But the disappearances continued, another, then another. Still, no clear pattern emerged for the local authorities, and the whispers among the migrant community remained just that, whispers tinged with a growing unease. A sense of dread began to permeate the air, particularly among those who worked directly for Corona, a silent fear that grew with each vanishing individual. The illusion of peace shattered abruptly, with a shocking discovery on properties connected to Corona's business and adjacent lands. A foul stench led to a shallow grave where a body, brutally murdered, was unearthed. The immediate impact was profound: disbelief, fear, and a chilling realization that a sinister undercurrent had long been flowing beneath the seemingly idyllic agricultural landscape. Who could commit such a heinous act? And could it be someone they knew, someone who walked among them, masquerading as a pillar of the community? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The discovery of the first body cast a long, dark shadow over Yuba City, but law enforcement initially struggled to connect the isolated incident with anything more sinister. Identifying the victims proved a formidable challenge. Their transient nature meant little in the way of personal records or immediate family to report them missing. Initial theories wandered down dead ends, attributing disappearances to simple desertion or unfortunate accidents, common among those living on the fringes. The sheer scale of the horror was yet to be fully grasped. Then, the gruesome discoveries escalated with terrifying speed. More bodies emerged from the earth, unearthed from shallow graves scattered across the peach orchards and along the riverbanks. Each new finding brought with it a fresh wave of revulsion and panic. The method of killing was disturbingly consistent. Brutal stabbings, often inflicted with a machete, leaving no doubt as to the sheer savagery involved. The victims, all male migrant workers, were buried with a chilling uniformity, carefully placed face up, their shallow resting places sometimes marked with a peculiar X carved into the earth above them. The sheer number of victims, accumulating at an alarming rate, sent shockwaves through the region, transforming the quiet agricultural community into a landscape of fear. Investigators, initially overwhelmed, began to connect the dots. The patterns were undeniable. The victims were invariably male, transient farm laborers, and crucially, many had ties to Juan Corona's labor force. Evidence at the scenes, though sparse, started to paint a grim picture. The peculiar burial methods, the specific tools hinted at by the wounds, and those eerie X marks on the graves began to point towards a singular, monstrous hand. Police attention irrevocably shifted towards Juan Corona, his ubiquitous presence near the burial sites, his control over the very population now being systematically murdered, made him a prime suspect. Interviews with his family and community members, initially yielding nothing but praise for the hard-working patriarch, slowly began to reveal subtle inconsistencies, faint cracks in the facade of the upstanding citizen. His seemingly calm and cooperative demeanor during these early questioning sessions stood in stark contrast to the unspeakable horrors being unearthed around him. It was a chilling composure that unnerved even seasoned detectives. The tension reached a crescendo with the dramatic execution of a search warrant on Corona's property. What they found there would forever shatter the illusion of the benevolent contractor. Inside his home, investigators discovered blood-stained clothing, a chilling ledger meticulously detailing names of his workers, names that eerily matched those of the victims, and perhaps most damningly, a machete, a tool capable of inflicting the very wounds found on the bodies. The shock and disbelief among his wife and children were palpable as their patriarch, the man they had always known, was irrevocably implicated in a monstrous crime. The world they knew crumbled around them. Juan Corona's arrest ignited a media frenzy that swept across the nation. The community of Yuba City grappled with an impossible paradox. How could the man they knew, the seemingly good Juan Corona, be the suspected serial killer responsible for such unspeakable atrocities? Racial tensions and deep-seated prejudices, always simmering beneath the surface, were brought to the forefront, complicating an already horrific situation. As the legal machinery began to grind, Corona's defense team swiftly moved to build their strategy. They pointed fingers at his brother Natividad Corona, suggesting he was the true culprit, or perhaps an accomplice. They floated theories of mental illness, seeking to explain the inexplicable, or even claimed their client was being framed. For Corona's family, it became an internal struggle of immense proportions. Was their loyalty to the man they loved unwavering, or would the overwhelming, damning evidence forced them to confront a terrifying truth? The stage was set for a trial that would expose the true scale of his depravity, leaving everyone wondering how such evil could hide in plain sight for so long. But was he truly the monster? Or was there another twist to this macabre tale waiting to be uncovered? The question of Juan Corona's true nature, of whether he was a cunning monster or a victim of circumstance, would be played out in what became known as the trial of the century. The courtroom in Yuba City became a crucible, where the prosecution meticulously laid bare the gruesome details of the murders. They presented the blood-stained clothing, the chilling ledger with its grim roster of names, and the machete, each piece of evidence a hammer blow against the defense's claims. Juan Corona, seated stoically, often emotionless, watched the proceedings, his demeanor a mask that offered no glimpse into the darkness within. The victims' families, their faces etched with grief and anticipation, endured the agonizing recounting of unimaginable savagery, hoping for justice. The defense, however, was not without its strategies. They attempted to sow doubt, to discredit witnesses, and to introduce alternative suspects. Natividad Corona, Juan's brother, became a central figure in their narrative, posited as the true perpetrator, or at least as someone deeply involved. Arguments of mental incompetence were floated, painting Juan as a man detached from reality, incapable of understanding the gravity of his alleged actions. They even suggested he was a scapegoat, framed by forces unknown. These legal battles, fraught with procedural complexities and emotional appeals, prolonged the agony for all involved, transforming the search for truth into a protracted war of attrition. After lengthy deliberations, the jury returned with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. A collective gasp, then a wave of relief swept through the courtroom, particularly among the victims' families who had waited so long for this moment. Juan Corona, the patriarch, the labor contractor, was sentenced to life imprisonment, his fate sealed. Yet this was not the definitive end. The legal odyssey of Juan Corona would continue for years, a testament to the complexities of the justice system and the determination of his defense. A successful appeal, citing ineffective counsel, led to a retrial. The legal teams once again faced off, the same horrific evidence represented, the same arguments rehashed. The retrial, held years after the initial conviction, was equally grueling, but ultimately the outcome remained unchanged. A second guilty verdict solidified Juan Corona's fate, consigning him to spend the remainder of his days behind bars. The enduring legal battles, though exhausting, ultimately brought a measure of finality for the victims' families, who had fought tirelessly for accountability. Juan Corona spent decades in prison, his continued claims of innocence echoing through the stark corridors of his confinement. With each passing year, his physical and mental health declined, the once robust labor contractor fading into a shadow of his former self. His children and wife, who had grappled with the devastating legacy of his actions, faced their own silent sentences, forever marked by the crimes of their patriarch. The family, once a symbol of the American dream, was irrevocably fractured, its name forever synonymous with unimaginable horror. The enduring questions surrounding Juan Corona's motives continue to haunt investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. What truly drove this man, seemingly so ordinary, to commit such unspeakable atrocities? Was it mental illness, a deeply buried psychotic break that festered beneath his calm exterior? Was it sexual deviancy, a dark desire that found its outlet in brutal violence? Or were financial desperation and the pressures of his failing business the catalysts that pushed him over the edge, intertwining with a pre-existing psychological fragility? These unanswered questions, swirling in the void of his stoic silence, ensure his case remains a chilling enigma. The legacy of Juan Corona's crimes, however, extended beyond the individual tragedy. They spurred significant reforms in migrant worker protection and labor laws, shining a harsh light on the vulnerability of transient populations and prompting efforts to safeguard those working on the fringes of society. The psychological scars on the Yuba City community lingered for generations, a constant reminder of the evil that had hidden in plain sight. Juan Corona's name, etched into the annals of true crime history, secured his place as one of America's most prolific and enigmatic serial killers. Even after decades, the dark secrets of Juan Corona continue to evoke a chilling fascination, a stark reminder of the hidden monsters among us and the enduring quest for understanding the darkest corners of the human mind.